Hello everyone, I'm JG and welcome back to Music Forever, where today I'm going to be reviewing the newest EP from Fully Involved, Participation Trophies. This is one of my most anticipated projects of the year, considering the last EP to come from this music project that dropped last year, Insulince, was my favorite EP of last year. Overall, just a really great slice of modern pop punk that had a lot of grit and edge to it, but at the same time maintained a lot of the catchier elements that make pop punk, pop punk. And it's something that I feel like a lot of modern bands in the scene don't really have going for them. Lots of times they feel a bit too sanitized or overproduced. Not the case with Insulince, and that's why I love that EP as much as I did. Coming into this new EP, though, I was really excited to see what was going to happen stylistically, considering I heard that this project was going to be a bit of a departure from the sound of Insulince. You see, during the creation process of Insulince and this EP here, they were originally, I guess, supposed to be a single project following the debut album from Fully Involved. However, stylistically, I guess, it ended up splitting into two separate EPs with two completely different sounds, and yeah, that's what ended up happening, and that's why we're here to talk about the second of those EPs today. Stylistically, this project is a lot more mellow and laid back compared to Insulince, which is a lot more in your face and aggressive, and lyrically this project also is a bit different as well. Whereas Insulince dealt with having to live with type 1 diabetes in modern America and a lot of the negative things that happen as a result of that, this project deals with doing nothing pretty much, but not in a good way, not like in a going on vacation and relaxing kind of doing nothing. It's more so the kind of feeling that a lot of young adults and even teenagers feel, which is being unable to get to the goals that maybe they have for themselves in life, or maybe that other people expect of them to reach in their own lives, whether these roadblocks come across because the person themselves can't quite reach them or because of outside factors. That feeling of just nothingness, of being unable to do whatever it is out there that you want to do, is really embodied here on this new EP, and I think it's pulled off really nicely. I personally find it pretty interesting how, despite the fact that this EP and Insulince have pretty different focuses when it comes to what they want to talk about more specifically, if you look at them a bit more generally, they do share some pretty common themes of just dealing with frustration in modern American society, in particular when it comes to the perspective of, say, a young adult or a teenager, for example. And given the fact that I do fall into that age category and I do in fact live in America, I could personally relate to a lot of the stuff that's being discussed here across not just Insulince that dropped last year, but also this EP as well. I think if there's any track on this EP that really embodies the overall vibe that all the lyrics on this thing are trying to go for, I think it's the middle track on this thing, Gaslighting, which sees the protagonist of the song essentially being the cause of their own problems in a way and just being unable to escape this. It really does just embody the overall feel that much of this EP goes for, and especially when it's paired up with the rest of the instrumental to this track, which, like I said before, like a lot of the instrumentals on this thing is a bit more laid back and lethargic. It really does help create this atmosphere on this thing of just being unable to escape this nothingness. Another one of the more interesting tracks on this EP from a lyrical perspective is the track Reverb, which sees the protagonist of the song wanting to escape from their hometown but being unable to for one reason or another, whether because they don't have necessarily the talent to do so, or once again it's just another one of those mental roadblock type things where they just feel unable to do anything at all. This track really does embody the frustration that I feel a lot of people out there certainly feel when it comes to trying to get out of, say, a smaller hometown and try to go after maybe a more successful or exciting lifestyle or career or anything like that. This track just does a really excellent job of embodying that feeling of just feeling stuck and frustrated in like this hometown where absolutely nothing there has anything to offer to you anymore. The closing track to this EP, if for just a second, is another one of the most interesting on the entire project, I feel, from multiple different perspectives. Lyrically, it's a bit interesting because I start to see some hope shining through in the lyrics here on this track, especially during the hook of the song, where it seems like the narrator of this song is saying that they're going to try to find some happiness or peace at the very least whenever they're able to come across someone else who is just doing okay overall, even if they don't think that they're ever going to, come across this person again or form some kind of really significant relationship with them. It seems like the narrator of this track is at least trying to search a bit more for some happiness or peace in the world compared to some of the other tracks on this thing. And the fact that this track comes towards the end of the EP, I feel like it helps create this really nice arc overall, where at the end of everything, the narrator is, I guess, able to break away from some of the problems that pop up earlier on in the project. Instrumentally, this track is also pretty interesting too, feeling a bit more energetic and upbeat at the very least compared to a lot of the tracks that preceded it on the EP. And the hook to this track as well feels a bit triumphant too. Maybe not completely so, because there is still a lot of the themes that are present on the rest of the tracks on this thing that, seep their way into this track as well. And there is this sense of uncertainty that you get listening to the lyrics here on this song, especially during the chorus. Almost like the narrator of this track isn't completely certain of what they're saying, but they're just going to say it anyway and try to stick with it going forward. That's somewhat the vibe I get from listening to this thing, but still, I do think it creates a very nice arc overall listening to this EP. And the hook to this track as well is just really catchy and fun to sing along to as well. Overall, If For Just a Second is a really solid closer to this EP, definitely one of the best songs on this thing. I really like how it's a really solid conclusion to this thing, and I like how it ties up a lot of the ideas introduced earlier on in the project, and it does help create a bit of a narrative in the EP as well, which was also something that I did like in Insulince, so the fact that that aspect was carried over into this EP is something that I do really appreciate. A lot of the other instrumentals across this EP go for a more laid-back feel that I think is pulled off really nicely. I do really feel, as I alluded to earlier, like this EP is trying to pull together that feeling of just being unable to do anything at all, like just being stuck in this state of doing nothing at all, and I think that this EP pulls it off really nicely. The track Reverb is another one of my favorite cuts on this thing, particularly because of the instrumental. I just love how dreamy and spacey and atmospheric it is. It definitely does embody that haze that one seems to feel when they just can't do anything at all, and I feel like this track is one of the best on the album when it comes to pulling that feeling off. The vocals across this EP are another aspect that I think is overall pretty great. I was pretty interested to see how they were going to pan out on this thing, given that Mark's vocals haven't exactly been really focused on doing this style of delivery a ton on any of his previous efforts. However, he manages to pull it off really nicely, and he manages to put together some really great catchy hooks in the process as well. Like I said, the closing track to this thing has one of the best choruses on this thing. The track Gaslighting, outside of having some really great lyrics, as I said before, also features a really catchy hook as well. And on Simmer, his vocal delivery really does, once again, help sell that really dreamy, lethargic state of doing nothing that the instrumental itself was also doing a great job of delivering as well. However, I still do like how on occasion Mark's vocals on this thing can become a bit more frantic and frustrated sounding. For example, on the bridge of the first track on this thing, the title track, he does sound a bit more aggressive. He sounds a bit lost and anxious too. The vocals kind of remind me of something that could have appeared on Insulince, for example. It's a bit different, but it does stand out on this project as a result of that, and I do like how he's able to keep things interesting with some moments like these. The overall sound and production of this EP is another aspect that I quite enjoy. It maintains a lot of that rough around the edges quality that I quite like about some of the previous efforts from this music project. Though, like Insulince, it's never to the point of being a detriment to the sound of this project, and given that this EP does move in, I guess you could say, a bit of a poppier direction compared to the more punk sound of that project, I still do like the fact that this project does maintain some grit to it. However, like I said, it never does come at the expense of the sound or your enjoyment of this thing. Overall, I think that this is a really great EP. Maybe not quite as great as Insulince, however, for the most part, I'd say that the two EPs are about equal when it comes to quality, and the fact that this thing is trying a completely different sound just makes it a bit more impressive as well. I do really love how this thing is able to pull together that idea of feeling like doing nothing as nicely as it does. It just feels really tight and cohesive between all the instrumentals on this thing, the vocal deliveries, the lyrics as well. Definitely just a really cohesive, punchy, to the point EP that has a lot to offer to its listeners. So if you're a fan of rock music, or if you're like a young adult or a teenager, considering I think you're going to like some of the lyrics on this project, I would definitely recommend this project to you. And with that said, that concludes today's review. It is just my own personal opinion, so if you happen to disagree, that is fine. Make sure that you check out the description down below, where I'm going to have a link to where you can listen to this EP on the Fully Involved channel, as well as a link to Fully Involved Bandcamp where you could purchase this EP, which I highly recommend you do. There's also going to be a link down below in the description to my review of Insulince that came out about a year ago. So yeah, make sure you check that out as well if you want to know my full thoughts on that EP. And while you're down there, make sure you also leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel for more music-related content, things like album reviews, track reviews, that kind of content. If you enjoy it, make sure you subscribe. Comment down below your thoughts on this EP. And thank you for watching. Stay golden.